Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, your home for all Oakland sports. My name is GioMoShow. I am the host of the GioMoShow. We appreciate you stopping by here. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to help support the show. We're about towards the tail end of the fall sports seasons, both for men's and women's soccer, volleyball included, are reaching the end of the Horizon League regular season, getting ready for a spot in their respective postseason tournaments. And now we're getting into the start of basketball. So rate, review, and subscribe, liking it here on YouTube, rating on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, would be a great help to the show. We got a whole lot coming up. You can follow the GioMoShow on Instagram. It's got its own page at the GioMoShow, and you can follow me on Twitter at GioMoShow, WXOU. You can use the hashtag the GioMoShow to keep up with all things going on with the show. So we'll start things off with this, kind of a painting with a broad brush here when it comes to the rest of the show. We're kind of consolidating things here. We're trying to minimize so I can keep up with the show in a timely fashion. We're going to be covering just Oakland sports on the GioMoShow for the foreseeable future. Unfortunate to all those who have enjoyed the NFL coverage, but for time's sake, we're focusing on just the Golden Grizzlies. Now, it's not mean I'm going to stop watching the NFL or anything, but it's going to have to take a backseat to the Oakland sports here on the show. Be sure to subscribe to WXOU Sports on YouTube. WXOU Sports is the place to be for all things sports from your favorite college radio station. WXOU Sports features live audio broadcasts of all Oakland University home games, including men's and women's basketball. They also feature interviews with athletes and coaches, with highlights and more. Just go to YouTube and search WXOU Sports and hit subscribe. Now, back to the show. So, with that being said, we'll get started here with the Oakland sports. We'll start with volleyball and women's soccer. I'll kind of consolidate them because they're towards the end of their regular seasons, and we'll be honest, they're not doing so hot. For women's volleyball, a 3-8 conference record has them tied in the second to last spot in the Horizon League. And that's 7-16 is Oakland's overall record. And given how much time there is left here in the Horizon League regular season, only top 6 get in, and there's not a whole lot of time left to be able to punch their way into it. Of course, anything can happen as they play all the way until mid-November. So it's not to say that the season's over, but it's not going to get as much coverage here on the show unless we start seeing a trend upwards. I'm not going to waste you guys' time with a team that is not doing so hot here, so I'll just put it at that. We'll absolutely keep an eye on them. Their next game coming up is going to be hosting Cleveland State October 29th. That's Tuesday. Tomorrow, as of this recording, it's going to be their Halloween broadcast. You can hear it live on WXOU. Last year I was on the call and I was in a Luigi costume with a homegrown mustache. So I'm sure they're going to be having a lot of fun on WXOU for that call, listening to it for free on our favorite college radio station. And on kind of the same note for women's soccer, they're also having a very tough go of it for their season. They are third from they're tied for last place in the Horizon League with only 6 conference points, equating to just 2 conference wins. 2-7 is Oakland's Horizon League record. 3-13-2 is their overall record under first-year head coach Devin Zvosek. And, it's similar to the volleyball team. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a team that's not doing so hot, with all due respect to them. Only a few games left in their Horizon League regular season. Top 6 get in, and it's proving to be unlikely that they'll be able to reach that mark, as unfortunate as that is. They got 1 game left for the 30th anniversary celebration of the team. It'll be this Wednesday, October 30th at 7 p.m. at the Oakland Soccer Field, hosting Detroit Mercy. So that is going to be a big game, but unfortunately, the stakes are not the same as some of the other sports that we're going to be talking about coming up. So we'll leave it there and keep an eye on it. But a team that is doing very well for themselves in this fall part of the season is men's soccer, as they're continuing to be the top of the Horizon League. They were regular season champions last year, hosted the tournament, and were runner-ups in the tournament in a loss to Green Bay. But Oakland men's soccer is still right now holding the top place in the Horizon League. A big part of that is their win against Robert Morris, who was right behind them. Oakland has 14 conference points. That leads the whole conference. Right beneath them are Robert Morris and Green Bay that have 13 points each, and a couple of teams below them have 10. Definitely within range of getting into that top 3, that being Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Milwaukee with 10, and Detroit Mercy with 9, rounding out your top 6 for the tournament. And that win against Robert Morris was huge, and I'll talk just about their previous game here to keep the timeline concise. But a 3-2 victory Oakland had against the Colonials. We'll get to the box score right here. It started off with Zach Townsend getting the Golden Grizzlies the early lead in the 13th minute, assisted by Carson Bala. But just before halftime, Robert Morris was able to tie and then gain the lead. In the 20th minute and in the 43rd minute, Robert Morris would score to get the 2-1 lead going into the break. But all the way into the 65th minute and the 69th minute, Oakland was able to retie and gain the lead themselves. Abdul Al-Rashed and Jaden Pendejo were the ones to score to give Oakland the 3-2 lead that ended up being the one for victory over the Colonials. And I don't know specifically where Oakland was before that game, but certainly getting them into the number 1 spot. And it's going to be huge to hold on to that for their upcoming game that they're going to be playing against Green Bay. That's this Friday, November 1st at 1 p.m. at the Oakland Soccer Field. It's senior day for their last home game of the season. And remember, Green Bay is 1 point behind Oakland as the reigning tournament champions. They want to get back. They want another win at the Oakland Soccer Field, and Oakland can't let that happen to keep their number 1 spot. So it's going to be very close and huge implications for the Horizon League seeding going into the tournament, and they'll have one game after that to finish off the regular season. November 5th at 2 p.m. at Detroit Mercy will finish off their regular season. And then Sunday, November 10th, we'll have the Horizon League quarterfinals, and we'll see if Oakland even has to play in that. Will they be one of the top 2 seeds that gets the bye, or will they be the number 1 seed and have the bye and host? We'll have to see. They're going to have to fight for it as Green Bay and Detroit Mercy both looking to be in the tournament themselves and trying to chase a higher seed. So that's going to be huge. We're going to be definitely keeping an eye on that as the season goes on. And now for the first time in what feels like forever, I want to talk about basketball. That's the big ticket here at Oakland. It's not lost on me. I understand that basketball, specifically the men's team, is the big draw, is the big ticket, the biggest, it's the crown jewel of Oakland sports. I'm aware of that, especially after last year's success for the men's side. We'll start with the women's side, though. We'll get to the men in a second to wrap it up here on the GioMoShow. And this one kind of follows a similar tone as the women's soccer team and the volleyball team. I feel weird that it's all the women's sports that I don't have nice things to say about, and the men's sports I do. Not intentional, but just look at the records. I'm not making it up. It's just unfortunate that it shakes out that way. But for women's basketball, I wrote for the Horizon Roundtable their season preview article that's out right now at horizonroundtable.com. In this season, it was rough last year, 8th seed in the Horizon League going into the tournament, losing in the first round, I believe, to Northern Kentucky, who ended up making a big run themselves in the playoffs, or in the conference tournament. But this year, so much turnover. College sports has turnover, but like this team has a lot of turnover. We've lost 6 of the top 7 scorers on Oakland's team from last year, both from graduation and from transfer portal. Brooke Quarles-Daniels, the biggest piece of that. leaving to play at the University of Michigan, who Oakland will be facing later in their non-conference part of the season, like their early non-conference part of the season. But Quarles Daniels leaves to be a Wolverine. Kennedy Monteau to Arkansas State. We saw the graduation of Linda Van Schaik, of Alexis Johnson, Keani Westbrook, Markai McCormick. We lost a lot of players. And those that were brought in this year, it's not like Kevin Durant's coming to town, okay? I'll put it that way. Despite the NBA results of that, but I'm reserving judgment. Fortunately, I have to wait and see when it comes to this team. Not a whole lot of detail was given from Tungate, both in my interview I had with him earlier in the summer that I have up on the GioMoShow YouTube channel right here. Both then and later on in mid-September at Horizon League Media Day, Coach Tungate didn't have a whole lot to say specifically about who's going to be who on this team. He mentioned by name Liana Baxter and Maddie Skorupski as being going to be important pieces, 2 of the 5 returning players, not even starters, players on Oakland's team. But other than that, he wasn't able to give a lot of detail as to who's going to be playing what role and like how many minutes and stuff like that. So our only real piece of evidence as to who's going to be who is going to be from their exhibition game against Rochester, at least as of October 28th when we're recording this. So we'll go through that, but just overall, it's going to be a lot to prove for Oakland this year, especially given where they landed in the Horizon League preseason polls. They landed 9th out of 11 teams, so just dropping 1 spot from last year's tournament seeding. But yeah, a lot to prove, a lot of new pieces, many of which are of high school, of Division II, of JUCO. We had one player came from Eastern Michigan. Callie Denson comes from Eastern Michigan. But other than that, a lot of the players are jumping up a level to play at Oakland. So it's tough for me to say, how it's going to translate into the Horizon League, especially when you got juggernauts like Green Bay and Cleveland State, like towards the top of the league. Cleveland State, I'm pretty sure, has like three of their players in the preseason all first team, first team all league. They got 3 players on that team, either Green Bay or Cleveland State. I can't remember, but to play against juggernauts like that, it's going to be tough to see if jumping up a level is going to translate right away, or will it take time? So it's a tough scene so far for Oakland women's basketball. There's a lot of potential, especially when you get a lot of shakeup like this. It's just like you bring a lot of new pieces, a lot of new things can happen. But I don't have the professional opinion that it's going to be new number 1 seed in the Horizon League right away. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. But you guys can check out my preseason article on horizonroundtable.com. It gives a little details as to Tungate's situation as it comes into this season. I'll let you guys read that or figure it out for yourselves. I'll leave that out of the GioMoShow. But either way, let's get into a little bit of the takeaways that we got from their exhibition game against Rochester Christian. Another one of the NAIA schools that are on the schedule. Cleary's coming up for their next game as well. Cleary being another one of the WAC conference, Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference teams that are going to be on the schedule this year. But in their game, it was Maddie Skorupski that proved to be the one with the most minutes, as she scored 26 points. Yes, as she scored 26 points on 10 for 15 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 5 free throws, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists, a block and 2 steals. She was able to do a lot, and my initial guess just kind of my own looking at it, one of the 5 returning starters. She was one of the top 5 leading scorers on last year's team, that she was going to be a bigger piece and was going to be like the focal point of the offense. Judging by this game, that proves to be the case. As she got tied for the most minutes in 29. It was one of the starters, scored the most. That kind of leads into, hey, this is probably going to be one of our core pieces. And in addition to Skorupski being one of the starters that got a lot of action, Madison Royal Davis, 22 minutes, 10 points. Liana Baxter, 17 minutes, 10 points as well. Not in a starting role. That starting center spot was given to new addition Kylie Buckley, 17 minutes for 5 points. And one of the bigger additions to the team, which I kind of figured would be, because it was one of their first, and she comes in with the most volume of experience, is Danny Grimm, a cornerstone piece of her previous team, the name of which evades me, but that's why you go to the Horizon Roundtable's website to read the article about it. But for her team, she was like second in scoring, first in rebounds and minutes and assists and steals. Like, she was a huge volume player, and her getting 29 minutes and 15 points points to her starting to fill the shoes of Brooke Quarles-Daniels for the Golden Grizzlies. Macy Smith also getting a lot of minutes, 28 of which, poor shooting night, unfortunately, for only 8 points, but starting role, 28 minutes. Maybe we'll be seeing a lot more of her throughout the season. But other than that, everyone just got like a decent share of minutes, and there's only so many takeaways we can have from this, but we can say the big ones are Skorupski is going to be the number one piece. Danny Grimm is going to be a huge piece as well, more into the shoes of Brooke Quarles-Daniels, and that Liana Baxter is finally going to be seeing a lot of role on the floor, as she's been behind Cam Grant and Miriam Abizam for a few years now. Now in her third year, she's finally going to be able to see the court and be part of that, that center spot on the Golden Grizzlies. But those are really the biggest 3 takeaways that we have from an exhibition game. We'll have to see what goes down in the regular season. And for that regular season, they're going to be starting off on the road in the Breslin Center as they face the Michigan State Spartans before they come home. That game against the Spartans is going to be Tuesday, November 5th at 6:30. And then they'll be coming home to face Cleary Friday, November 9th at 11 a.m. I'll be on the call for that on WXOU. So that one's going to be a lot of fun to call. A lot of points probably going to be scored by Oakland. If last year's game was any indication, it was like 110-52. So that one, Friday, 11 a.m., November 8th, your boy will be on the call in the arena once again. And now let's get started with men's basketball, as they've played now 2 exhibition games as they are finally getting ready to start in their regular season coming up. That'll be their first regular season game will be Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. That one should be a lot of fun to watch against Defiance College. That one having a Campy connection, as Defiance is the home of Greg Campy in Ohio. But either way, getting to the basketball side of things, I talked with Gavin Smilowski last week, who was on the call in LCA against Michigan. And we got his takeaways and what he saw from the team in that game against the new Wolverines under Dusty May. But they then also played at Rochester Christian University nearby for the Golden Grizzlies, winning that one 87-74. And we'll talk about some of the takeaways there. But I want to start things off with the preseason of the Horizon League. And I want to count down a little bit because we won't have to count down very far to get to Oakland. But tied in the preseason poll for the Horizon League for the number 1 spot is Milwaukee and Purdue Fort Wayne. I want to talk about Purdue Fort Wayne first because they came into the arena last year and just burned the place down in their first regular season game against Oakland. Not talking about the quarterfinals of the Horizon League tournament that I was on the call for on Odyssey with a hoarse voice. But either way, they came into the arena in, I think, early December and burned the place down. to the tune of 60+% from the field and 66% from three. 96 points or whatever the score they had. They just lit it up. And what I'm not surprised they made it to the number 1 spot, even though they came from the number 8 spot in the tournament last year, is because they had a young team that year. And they are returning a lot of their previous starters, now having a second year under the same system. That's kind of a luxury in college basketball nowadays. And they get to have, a lot of, preseason all-team, all-league members into a second year with that familiarity with each other. So that one is going to be dangerous. They're worthy of such. I would agree with that voting. Milwaukee, on the other hand, they are the runner-ups in the Horizon League tournament. They were the 4th seed last year. They came into the tournament like on fire, on such a hot streak, making it all the way to the championship game where they ran into our Golden Grizzlies in a historic game from Trey Townsend. But they are, going to try and keep it rolling, and they got the players, they got the coaching to do so. That is a tough team that are deserving of the number 1 spot. Now, with the 2 number 1s, that brings to a number 3 spot. That's going to go to Northern Kentucky, who's been a tough team and has had some great talent over the few years, at least that I've covered it, and in covering Oakland basketball. They got 2 members of the first team All Horizon League, and Trey Robinson and Sam Vincent, Purdue Fort Wayne, Rasheed Bello, and Jalen Jackson, also joining them in the first team all-conference in the of preseason. Milwaukee having 2 of them in the second team with A.J. McKee and Eric Pratt making up spots in the preseason all-league second team. Where Oakland comes in is the number 4 spot. DQ Cole in that second team, or in an all-league second team honors for the preseason. But other than that, no other Golden Grizzlies are mentioned. Also, Quentin Morton-Robertson, second team for Purdue Fort Wayne, so they got 3 guys in preseason teams. But either way, now Oakland coming in as the previous regular season and tournament and Kentucky Killer seasons, losing a lot of those players, a lot of the guys that made that last season possible. Because, to kind of reorganize our thoughts here as it comes to now this season of Oakland basketball. What happened last year is most likely a once-in-a-lifetime trip, a once-in-a-lifetime ride. Not because of who we beat and, overtime in the NCAA tournament. Like, once in a lifetime because the stars aligned when it came to our players on the court. Like I mentioned with Purdue Fort Wayne having a second year with a lot of your same guys, 2 years being a luxury, Oakland had 3 years, 4 years of Trey Townsend, Chris Conway, and Blake Lampman being together on the same team on Campy's system. All of them in what ended up being their final year at Oakland, senior year, Blake coming in for his grad year, and just like all of that experience, teaching the zone, adding new players, adding Rocket into it a couple of years back, adding DQ into it this year, that's a once in a lifetime, aligning of stars. And we don't have those guys anymore. I mean, Jack Goldkey fitting into the 3-point shooting role as well, being obviously the biggest star of that team from the outside looking in. But we lost most of those guys. We don't have that same experience in the Campy zone anymore. We don't have that same experience with the community and the team and each other like we did last year. Townsend went to Arizona. Conway went to Washington. Jack Goldkey, Rocket Watts, Blake Lampman graduated. Lampman's now coaching at Michigan State. And, a lot of the guys that were core pieces, starting pieces, leaders, are not here anymore. So I say all that to kind of temper our expectations for this season. I'm not saying that we're going to stink. I'm not saying that we're not going to win a single game. But I'm saying, don't be upset with the team that we see just because of expectations from last year. last year is not the same team at all. I talked to earlier in the summer, even earlier than I talked to Tungate, I talked to associate head coach Jeff Smith of men's basketball, and we talked about expectations for this season given how last season went, and he basically said they had to kind of wipe their memories clean, and this is a new season. You can't expect kind of that same continuous linear growth that you used to back in the day before the transfer portal. It's not realistic to think of it that way. Now, Campy says that this team has the potential to, have a lot faster of a start than it has in the past, and not just to be good, but to be great. I believe that, but it's not going to be the same as it was last year. So I don't want anyone to expect the same as last year. It may not be that. But anyway, enough sugarcoating. So when it came to, now I want to kind of break down their game against Rochester to help us get a better view as to who the team's going to be, who's going to be starting, who's going to be getting a lot of minutes and shots. And judging by the box score of their game against Rochester Christian, Alan Mukeba looks like to be a huge piece to the starting lineup. And Campy said in his little preseason scouting report of Mukeba that he could come into the league and dominate. He could be a huge piece, a dominant force in the league right away. And with 24 points on 10 for 13, 10 rebounds, he looked that way against a WAC school. I get it. But, in terms of getting minutes, he had 31 of them, so that speaks for it as well. As well, or for new additions, Jalen Jones, brother of Isaiah Jones, younger brother, now he's a point guard coming from Tennessee State. He got a lot of minutes too in a spot that we didn't have a point guard last year. If a lot of you guys remember, we didn't have a Jalen Moore, a dedicated cornerstone piece of the offense. We had to kind of patch it together with Rocket and DQ and Tone Hunter. We kind of had to patch it together. Townsend had to take a lot of those assisting responsibilities as well, or facilitating responsibilities. But with Jalen Jones, hopefully he can start to alleviate that kind of shared responsibility on the courts and just be the point guard, let everyone else kind of focus on their role as opposed to covering up others. But he had 26 minutes, scoring 13 points. And Jason Woodrich, on the topic of returners, he had the most minutes in 37, where he took 10 threes, unfortunately only making 2. But he's definitely going to try and fill the shoes of Jack Golke in this season. He's one of the best shooters in the Horizon League, coming from Cleveland State, now coming to Oakland, a place where he's used to torching, used to shooting well in the arena. Now he gets to do it for Oakland instead of against Oakland. He's going to be one of those core starters as well. 37 minutes played. And in addition to that, DQ, Cole, and Baru, the returners, got 30 minutes each. DQ, Cole, 19 points, Baru, 13. So it looks like from just from looking at it, the starting lineup, it will most likely be Mukeba, Cole, Jones, Woodrich, and maybe Baru. I'm not saying that who's the one, the two. I'm not saying it position wise. I'm just saying 5 humans on the court. So I just want to make that clear for anyone watching instead of just listening wherever you get your podcasts. But that's what it's going to kind of look like for the season moving forward. And we'll see if Malcolm Christie could get the shooting up, because he was one of the best shooters coming out of where he's from. I believe he was the one from Canada, but he was one of the top shooting recruits there. Majak Dang, maybe we'll see some more of him throughout the season, but we'll see if Cooper Craggs can get some more playing time. This is his 3rd year, finally healthy, because he was injured the first 2, and he is the most veteran Golden Grizzly on the team in year 3. So hopefully he's going to finally be able to get some playing time for the local Catholic Central high school product. But despite all I kind of prefaced this segment with, I'm very excited for this basketball season. I'm excited to see how Campy can follow it up. And, is it going to be something where he can, I said not to keep those kind of expectations, but it's going to be cool to see, like, can Campy do it again? Can Campy stay competitive in the Horizon League? Can we have a deep postseason run as well? I'm excited to see that, and I think especially for DQ and Baru, like, I'm excited to see what those two can do with a lot more playing time, as they were, especially for Baru. He didn't get a whole lot of offseason. I'm really excited to see what he can bring to this team with his jumping heights. If we could see some alley-oops from Jones to Baru. I am excited for this season, no doubt about it. I was able to get some season tickets as a recent alum, and they had a deal for it. So I'm going to be in the arena throughout the season and very excited to see what my Golden Grizzlies are up to. And we'll see what our Golden Grizzlies are up to when we come back here next week on the GioMo Show. This has been our Oakland-only phase and saga of the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. We'll see you next week right here on YouTube. Rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the Instagram and the social medias. We'll see you next week. My name is Giovanni Mosheri. This has been the GioMo Show.